Hi guys, Aceface back with another video for Twisted Dice, and I'm back with some more tactics, advice, to try and help you improve your game and make you more prepared for the tournament scene and competitive gaming full stop. So if you do like this video, please take the time to subscribe, hit the bell button so when we do upload a video you're first to know about it, and let us know in the comments if you've got any tips or tricks or advice that you can also support players that are either returning to the tournament scene, need a little bit of extra help, or anything else that you want to share. And any feedback is always appreciated. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody that's commented and liked our videos recently. We've been bowled over by the support. It's much appreciated. And if you want to support the channel further, we have a Patreon service where you got an awesome access to a very cool Discord server, and we've got loads of other things planned for the amazing people over that back us on Patreon. But anyway, that's enough sales pitch. Let's jump into this video. And today what I want to talk about is the dreaded word, the meta. So I've been very anti talking about the meta, what it is up to this kind of point, and I've got videos on it. Because we are very new to 9th edition, and even though 9th edition has been here for a while, the reality is most of that time we've been in lockdown, most of the time we've been unable to play tournaments, and even when we've started to be in a position where we can, then what we've also found is they're very diluted and very polarized metas, because they're they're in a small area. And Tabletop Simulator does not count. It's not the real thing. It doesn't really exist, and I'm pleased that seems to be now slowing down and disappearing, because yes, it's a useful tool, but it's unrealistic. It doesn't give you the proper dimensions and proper feel of playing, and it's not the same. So I don't count that as part and parcel of building your kind of what it takes to kind of get up to speed with competitive play. But now things are starting to change. We are now getting big events. We've also now got a good chunk of codexes, and in about a month's time we'll be closing in on pretty much half of the codex being released. So we've got a good kind of benchmark of what the edition looks like, what works, what doesn't work, so we can start to work out what potentially the meta looks like. So what this video is all about is around how to gear you up for dealing with the meta. Now obviously at the moment that is Dark Eldar or the Jakari. We know that they are an absolute menace on the table and are bringing out huge win percentages, and even your average player is managing to pilot them to a lot of success. So, but rather than us do a video on how to beat Jakari, which I can do if that's what you want, what I thought we'd talk is a bit more general around how you can combat the meta, because it will ever change, and it never stays the same, and you need to be able to adapt to how the meta is. And how do you do that? Well, there's some real simple tips which hopefully will be helpful to you. The first is to know your army inside and out. So quite often when we pick up an army, we levitate, or I think levitate's the word, we move to the units that we've been told are the best units, the ones that are going to be the most points efficient, the ones that are going to do the most work for us. And that's absolutely fine, and we're not going to stop doing that, because we still want to pull that advice and knowledge from the community, and what is good is going to be good. So that's great. So, you're going to go and you're going to probably build and buy those units to make your army, quote unquote, the best it possibly can be. But now this is where, when we're talking about the meta and it changing, is you need to understand your army inside and out, because there will be units in there that currently are not considered good or not effective in the current meta, but actually, as things change, those units become quite useful. So let's give an example. The Devourer Termagant actually, is a Devourer Termagant very good at dealing with not Deathwatch, Deathwing. Is a Devourer Gaunt unit good at dealing with Deathwing? That's really difficult to wound. It's got a great save. It's just a hard egg to crack. It's got a 2-up save. Well, probably not. Even weight of fire, eventually you'll chew through them, but they're pretty difficult to get through. You know, anything that's tough and resilient, you know, custodes, whatever, they're going to be really difficult. Death Guard, they probably weren't the right thing to build into them. But now, where we've got Jakari, we've got lots of T3, very soft but hard-hitting bodies, then suddenly the Devourer profile is a really handy profile. The same with Poxwalkers are starting to become popular again. And no doubt Orcs around the corner. So actually that unit, you know, that unit becomes really useful. And that's what you need to look at. So unless you've got a full understanding of your full codex, quite often when a new army comes out or a new meta appears, you're a bit like, well, I don't know what to do with that. I better get a new army because my army doesn't work against that. Well, actually, that's not really the case. It's just you need to invest some time in unlocking and working out what the best parts of your army are. So that's the first tip. Really understand the ins and outs of your army and the different units and what the uses for those different units are. The next point is think about the primary, but particularly the secondary missions. So when you build your army, how are you going to score those secondary missions? How are you going to score them in regards to those meta armies? So how are you going to be able to, if you've got Dark Eldar flying across the board, trying to get you in combat, pin you down, you know, they've got all their boats, they're going to have great ball presence, great speed. What secondaries are going to really work for you to make sure that they don't hamper you from scoring your secondaries, you know? So what are the sort of things you're going to go for? And then how are you building your army to make sure that as much as possible, you don't have to count on your opponent, you can just count on yourself to score those secondaries. The more control you can take away from your opponent and put in your hands, the better. Because then what you're worried about much more is just scoring the primary, and your secondary is kind of a bit more in your hands. So think about units that are going to really benefit and that are going to be able to score you that secondary. Read every secondary mission and work out, is that a secondary mission a mission that I can pick with the army list I've got here? Is it something that I'm going to find impossible with Jakari around? Is it something that the next meta army, whatever it might be, you need to plan in those secondaries. So as much as possible, you take that ability away from your opponent and put it in your hands. It will be really, really important, and it will put you in a great place, because no matter what game you go into, you're going to have a rough idea of how you're going to try and score those points. And the next point is around building your army with an aim. So when you build your army and you look at every single unit in your army, rather than take a unit because you think it has good damage output, or you know, it's whatever it might be, the reason why you've taken that unit, decide what it's going to do in your army. So what role is it going to provide? What's it going to do on the table, and how is it going to interact with that meta army? So yes, you're not going to totally and utterly be completely fixated by that other army, because you play different armies, you play different styles, but you need to have in your mind, when you're talking about the meta and beating the meta, is you need to start thinking about so this is the unit I'm going to take. What's that role on the battlefield? What is it going to do for me? And okay, now how is it going to interact with the meta? Is it useless against what most people are going to take? Or actually is it going to be very effective? Because actually, even if the role that you want it to do, it can't do against what is the meta, then maybe we need to look at finding something else to fulfill that role. So think about what every role in your army does. If you're a Tyranid player, absolutely use the cap system, because it will put you in good stead. And that works for a lot of armies as well. But some of the more elite armies where different units are doing multiple roles, that's where the cap system doesn't work as effectively. But if you're an army with varied options, then look at the cap videos that I will put a link in the description, and you can see the basic building blocks of building a successful 9th edition army. So they are the three most important points. There's one other point that I want to cover, but I just want to summarize. So when you're looking at building your army, you want to be thinking about what your units are going to do against the meta. So understanding your whole codex. You want to be making sure that you are picking your secondaries that are as effective as possible, planning them in advance, and you want to make sure that every unit in your army has a useful role and is effective with what it's doing. The last point is to not worry. The reality is, if you're watching this and you're trying to plan potentially to counter a meta, or you're not following the meta, you're the one that's at the disadvantage, because there's a reason why it's meta, because it's very effective and because it works really, really well. So yes, the very best players will find a way to anti-meta and to be able to win, and what happens there is they then become the new meta, and that's obviously the ever-evolving circle of what's good and what's bad. But not everybody can do that. But if you're in that place where you're just trying to do your best with the army that you've got against what is perceived to be the best and what is most common, i.e. what is meta, then don't worry, because you're going to play a game and you're going to know that you're potentially at a disadvantage over your opponent. If you stick to your game plan, try and enjoy it as much as you can, accept that it's a tough game, accept that the chances are you might lose, but you're going to enjoy it. You're not going to get hit up by it. You're not going to moan and groan and stress by the fact that, you know, whatever's not fair, or this is underpointed, or this is too powerful. You'll get much more out of the game, and just accept it. So when I went to the Las Vegas Open 2 years ago, it was very much an Iron Hands meta. I took the Tyranids. I had an army that was really well prepared and well geared up to deal with the Iron Hands, but I still knew when I put my models on the table that I was at a disadvantage, and a good Iron Hand player should beat me more often than I beat him. So for that, I accepted it, and it didn't eat me up, it didn't hurt me. So when that happened, I was prepared for it, and you know, I was ready to move on to the next challenge. So make sure, you know, if you're not following the meta, you don't get hit up by it, you don't get salty by it, you don't get tilted by it. You just accept it, because these things are a big circle, and next week, next month, next year, your army could be the meta and you could have the hotness. So if you're not going to chase it, don't be stressed by it. Hopefully this video has been useful for you. Please do let me know in the comments below. If it's not, let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.